Welcome to the FoundHer Podcast.
We are two women who knew nothing about starting a business, but with our faith and a lot of determination, we founded our company that has grown to over 7 figures in just 3 years.
We're sharing all that we've learned, our secrets to building a brand and a long-lasting foundation to gain time and financial freedom.
We're both moms to 4 kiddos, and through the peaks and valleys of being a business owner, we're finding our true purpose, and it's more than we ever imagined.
So join us as we get real and have some fun along the way. Welcome back.
We're here.
How you doing, Dee Dee?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's chilly today.
I was like, I'm not really good with the weather.
We're looking very autumnal. For our listeners, you're in like flannel and look like a pumpkin.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm ready to I don't know, go line dancing or something.
Oh my gosh, even the line dancing. Okay. So we have lots of good stuff this week.
Yes.
My voice is still sounding like I don't know what.
I mean, we're literally going on. I'm pretty sure it's been about 3 weeks.
I know. It'll come back eventually.
Yeah.
It'll just be the new me.
It's fine.
I like it.
It's fine. So maybe I think it actually might be 4. It might be 4 weeks.
Anyway, we're going to go back to the beginning a little bit and talk a little bit more about the history. I think it's important to know really like where we came from.
Yeah.
So it helps us give a better sense of where we are now and like really how far we've come in just a couple of years.
Well, I also think too, like when we start talking about, a different, or we're bringing in a guest, or we're talking about a tool, or we're talking about something that we learned, understanding where we were and what the stages are that we've been through, I think will be really cool. So let's go back.
Well, yeah. And how we really started from nothing. It's not like you just say, hey, I'm going to open a store. I'm going to open a business. I want to be a designer. I want to be a wedding florist. I want to do all the things, which speaking of what? Okay. So let's just talk. I know. I was like, actually, let's just talk about, okay. So to date, we have a lot of revenue streams. Let's just talk about them really quickly to know where we are.
Behind that though, that can't just be thrown out there because we're going to look back at you, Bill, at first about how many revenue streams we have. So we might have to talk about that later, but we can talk about how many we have now.
Yeah. So we started in a retail store. Like that was our very first thing
But it was starting with wedding. So we had wedding.
Okay, true. Right? Okay. So you already were doing weddings before you met me.
And you were doing them with me before we had a store.
Okay. So that's true. Weddings was always number 1.
Yeah.
Because that was like no overhead.
No, nothing.
All that goodness.
And we'll talk about why that's important later, but yeah.
Then now we're going to talk about why we decided to open a little boutique.
Yep.
So that's number 2.
Yep.
We still have a much larger boutique now. Then during the pandemic, we decided to add on design because that was something we could do virtually. And that's still huge today. And then
what we did, our 4th is florals, but what we did, we used to call it studio because we had a second location. We recently actually closed that location, but Floral Land, we've pulled out of the concept of boutique because it's a totally different world. They have a different team that supports them all together. So that is number 4 revenue stream would be the
florals. Mm-hmm. Then you took on a huge undertaking last year or 2 years ago with the e-com build out.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
E-commerce, yeah.
And now we've added podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to do some online courses and all that good stuff. Education.
That's number 6.
What's number 7?
I don't know.
It's the
stay tuned to what number 7 is going to be.
I think we know what it's going to be, but we're just going to keep that to ourselves for now. we definitely know what it's going to be. It's coming. The LLC has already been formed, but we'll just keep that to ourselves for now.
Yeah, and we'll hopefully she's going to join us later in the series. But my cousin, I'll reference her a ton. But it was advice that I got from her way long ago. 7 streams of revenue, Diane. 7 streams. And it's always in the back of my mind. Always. Every decision I make, every conversation you and I have, where does that put us? What does that do? So we'll talk about why that's important. And hopefully she can share more about that too.
Yeah. It does kind of sound crazy. Like, how do you guys, we get that all the time. Like, how do you do it all? Like so many businesses. How do you even like keep them straight? But
yeah, this is a great segue into Only Prettier, right? And how it started.
Yeah.
So I actually, I started Only Prettier with my sister-in-law. The idea started really taking form back in 2014. winter 2014. That was the idea. And so I sat down with my husband and I was like, I'm done. Like I'm done. I want to do something more. At the time I was working for a company and traveling a ton. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then 2015, I remember I actually told her I was pregnant with my oldest at this lunch that we had. And so we were like, all right, well, let's start something. And when we were trying to come up with a name, this was, which is really funny, this was actually written on a napkin. I hear the story all the time of people like great ideas or they're doing something or whatever. I wrote it down or I signed an agreement or a contract on a napkin. Like, I forget, there's a really good story. I can't remember who it was, but he was like, my commitment. Oh, it was Dale Jr. Dale Jr. Back in his beginning of his career, he signed a napkin with Rick Hendrick. Like, all right, I'm going to drive for you. And that's where he actually retired with Hendrick Motorsports, which is really cool because he all started with a napkin. And so we named Only Prettier. Wrote it on a napkin. But what was really cool about Only Prettier is I was like, there's got to be something that's like umbrella, right? The name has got to be all like that.
So we that can it has room to grow.
Yeah, we can throw anything underneath it. That's why we layered on the word design. Yes, we have 6 different revenue streams. They work together.
They're all under design.
Yeah, and they all work together. So, and it's interesting because when one is busy, the other one's going to be slow. And so there's that ebb and flow in business, but we try to keep as steady as possible from an income.
Right. Because even if you were just, everybody knows retail has its peaks and valleys all the time, right? Like seasonally natural, right? So what do you do, in January when your retail business is super down?
Right. Weddings are seasonal, right? So
weddings are seasonal.
We're in New England. It's not all year round. There's definitely a wedding season that we walk into. I mean, we walk into an engagement season.
Yeah.
We walk into a wedding season. But even people in their houses, like they're not going to disrupt their house and say, hey, let's renovate our kitchen. Help me pick out my fixtures finishes on November 25th. Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So design also has its ebb and flows to it too, which is really interesting.
Yeah. So let's go back to, we talked about how we met, started doing weddings out of your garage, teaching me a little bit about flowers.
I remember that day too. Heather will share her thoughts regardless if she knows what she's doing or not. And so there was this day we're doing a wedding together. It was your friend actually. And I'm going through I did my rhythm. I know how this works. Like we got to process, we got to do this.
I don't know anything.
And somehow I let you convince me.
You did. I'm very convincing. My parents always told me I should be a lawyer because I can talk my way into out of or whatever. However I want it to go. I can
you did not
navigate
on this wedding for 2 days. You were like, we're just gonna go there and do it. And I was like, no, we're not. And you're like, yes, we are. And I was like, fine, we're gonna. Then after you left, I did do all the processing. I was like, I gotta get this done. I know that we can't do this, but and now you're like, it's Tuesday, let's go. And the wedding's on Sunday.
No.
But learn. You live and learn, right? Live and learn. So what were you saying?
I don't know. That was a beautiful first wedding.
It was beautiful.
Okay. So what was our very first thing that we ever did together besides that little wedding that we did? We did a couple weddings.
We did a couple of weddings leading up. And then I remember we were shopping for floral supplies. I have a memory like no other. Heather's looking at me like, I never shopped for floral supplies.
We did.
We went to Jacobson Floral in Boston.
Yeah.
And we used to do, Parker, your youngest, and Jake, my oldest, kind of like first friends for each other, right? And I just had Cole. And so we have the kids with us because we took the kids everywhere we went in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And we went to Jacobson Floral and we were shopping, picking up floral supplies for a wedding. And then, maybe what if, I don't know, maybe we could sell some of the stuff. We just started talking about it because we had talked to, we could talk to somebody at this consignment shop, I guess you would call it, or antique store, whatever.
Consignment shop for sure.
Fab Finds in Foxborough. And they had just opened. They were trying to get, vendors in there, and us wackos were like, let's do it. But then we had the stipulation. only if we get the back space in the wall.
Yeah, we're
center.
big. We'll talk about this more too, but we're big on signs and looking for God winks or signs or whatever you want to call them. Like we need affirmations that this is like what we're supposed to do, especially when one of us doesn't want to do it or isn't as excited about it. Like I'll admit, I was not that excited about it because for me, it was like, I don't know, it's like just more work. Like, how could I handle it all? I was still working full time. I had already had my 4 kids. She was only in her second. She didn't know any better. She was like, it's fine. They're just in a bucket seat, like whatever. And so, yeah, we were like, okay, if we get the back main wall.
Because it was best when you walked in, like
we'll do it.
When you walked in the store, that was what you saw. So we knew if we did a beautiful display, everybody's going to come to us. Everyone.
And so we got it.
We were in Jacobson Floral, pushing the carriage around, getting all the things that we did not need.
Right.
Hey guys, I just wanted to call and see if you'd like to join us. We'd love to have you here. And my question, do you know where our booth would be? Yeah, we're thinking that back wall that we talked about. And I was like, okay, we're in. I don't think I asked you. I was like, we're in.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember? I know I don't want this to be like a reminiscing podcast. It'll be hard for it not to be, but so of course we're going to go all out. We don't just do anything half-assed. We do it like we always do everything over the top. And so there was like a grand opening, I think it was, right? So we invite all of our friends, and we had a great turnout for our space, but we wanted to make it really custom and have our own wine. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember standing in
I don't know why we wanted our own wine.
We put our own labels on.
So we literally bought cheap wine. We soaked all the labels off, like in the sink.
It was like welcome to our opening or something. We put like almost what people were doing at weddings.
Kind of like like our own label on wine bottles. And I don't know, we thought we were so fancy.
I know. Actually, that just popped up as a memory.
I know,
2
when
weeks
it's
ago.
so terrible. It's
so
like
bad.
so ugly.
But it brought back so many memories of headlamps and the night shift in your basement.
We did. I had an unfinished like half of my basement, and we would take furniture down there. I didn't even have any electricity down there.
No.
In that half of the basement. So we wore headlamps. There was no heat.
And we had to do this after all of the kids were in bed.
And we would finish furniture down there. We're like, is it blue? Is it black? I don't know. I don't even know.
Did I get all of the places? Oh my gosh, we did so much to that basement.
It was beautiful. And we flipped so much.
We made mason jar Christmas.
I don't know.
Display.
Should we like hot glue cinnamon sticks?
Hot glued cinnamon sticks tied them together. I mean, we were crafting when we
were crafting, but you know what? We were making money.
Yeah, we were.
We made money. Like we would pay our rent
and then we
whatever.
got checks after. Yeah,
and we made money, and that was like
that's how we bought
the start of something. So actually, that we moved into a second location then because that one was doing well, and we're like, oh, what if we go up
north?
How
did we actually get in that one? Have we done Profound yet?
I don't know. Maybe. I think we had done Profound. So Profound is like a really big market with vendors out in this big field, and it's
so awesome.
Super, super awesome. And it's great for people just starting out. A lot of crafters, a lot of antiquers.
And not even if you just started out, and in general. It's
just for us, it was great.
It was amazing. It was awesome.
People found us. They saw what we were doing. And then
social media, I was huge for social media.
We did that. And then
that's how we met them.
Little consignment shop.
Because we went upstairs at Laurel Grove, and our friends actually, Katie and Beth, came and helped us kick off and like set up and launch.
Oh.
Remember? I don't remember that. It was raining. Yeah.
Anyway, so then we did a second little consignment shop, and we did that for maybe a year.
I don't know. No.
Time gets really blurry.
Especially for Heather.
No.
So it was this December, we went into Fab Finds. February, we went into Laurel Grove. And then came March. And then came me annoying the crap out of you.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was the little store.
Yeah.
And again, here we are, right? We're in other people's other people's locations and it's about upholding their brand, right? And I remember getting phone calls. You got to refresh your booth. You got to refresh your booth. Both of us are still working full time. Both of us have a gaggle of kids. And it was like on their time, right? Of what they needed. And we didn't know what was selling through. Oh my gosh, your hutch just sold. We don't have one painted. We're not ready. What do we do? Right. So it was all this stuff of how do we make sure we're prepared? And we're tired of that.
Yeah.
When I moved to Norfolk back in 2015. And I remember driving up and down this road that our little shop was on. And I said it out loud to my husband. I said, one day, that is where my business is going to be. I will be there.
Did you always know that you wanted to have like a retail location?
I think so. I love it. I love to shop.
You always just wanted your own little place.
Yeah. Something. It's that way I could. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what's funny is that I remember, I guess I had always maybe like thought about it because I was doing my own like side business. And I had already pretty much decided in my mind, I don't ever want to do this. Like, it's so much work. And I think that maybe I knew my own limitations too, that like, I could never do this by myself. I never wanted to start a business by myself. And maybe also was doing it by myself.
Right.
I didn't want to, I think I always knew how much work it was going to be. And then once you just add a bunch of kids in there, it gets really overwhelming really, really quickly. And I just thought, I don't know if I can do this.
Well, and I didn't even tell you I did this. So one day I think I had gotten a call from somewhere to go refresh something. And I was exhausted. The piece that I said I was going to paint, I didn't paint it. And I was like, I'm not ready to do this. And I just sent the email. I was like, I don't care. I just want to know who owns the Starn building. And so it's right in front of a cabinet company. So I just emailed the cabinet company.
Yeah. Hey, do you know
who owns this building? Like, whose is it? I didn't tell you that. And then I got the response. And they're like, actually, we do own it. And actually, it's available at the end of this month. What? Now I had to tell you. I was like, oh my gosh, we have to go look at this. And I'll never forget, I called you and I was like, hey, and I'm telling you the story. And I was like, we just have to go look at it. No. Every time you're like, no.
I wouldn't even go look at it?
No. You're like, no. And I was like,
I wouldn't even look.
I was like, please, can we just look at it? Then I told you the story. I told you the story.
So funny.
So.
Yeah.
So the family that actually owns the cabinet company and actually owns that building, I didn't know them, but I knew their oldest son.
Yeah.
He went to college with my husband, played baseball together. And so immediately I had this connection to this building because what are the odds that I actually are acquainted with the family that owns it? When I told you that story, you were like, oh, fine. We can look at it. And I remember Tyler was working from home that day. You dropped Parker off to play with Jake and they were playing and we went and looked.
I remember loving the wallpaper.
And the floor.
And I loved the floor. And I loved the size because it was very tiny. So that seemed like
realistic. Doable.
But I must have said no still like 10 times.
Well, you still said no after we left. You were like, no.
Like, I couldn't do this. I was definitely going through like a lot of personal things at that time, which I'll get into later. But everything seemed overwhelming in my life. Everything, like daily life seemed overwhelming. And to add one thing that might make it harder just seemed
crazy.
Right. Like stupid. Like, why would you add something to your life to make it more difficult? Like, I couldn't see beyond that little, very narrow and dark like tunnel. You know, how did you ever get me to actually say yes?
So I
do remember thinking like it was a sign, like, Kraft, like, it's available. Like, what are the chances that?
Well, so of course, me, it's always the money part, right? Like, I needed to understand the finances when I looked at what we were paying for the other two. And if we just did this one, it just made much more sense. Then we could have our flowers. And that's the part that we couldn't do anywhere else. And we wanted to bring the flowers there.
And have a place, I do remember, to like do consults. So we would like meet couples
at Panera,
right, like a Starbucks or something, and it didn't seem very professional. Like, how great would it be to have our own space to meet a client and all of that? So
yeah. And I remember talking to you, and you had some sort of sign. Something happened for you that you were like, okay, like I have a sign, like this is a smart move. And then I remember going home and I was like, I don't have a sign. I said it to Tyler. I was like, I don't have a sign. I want a sign. You can't ask for these things, right? That's not how it works.
I do remember having a sign. What was?
I don't remember. We'll have to think about it. But then Tyler goes, you idiot, you do have a sign. It's Brian.
Yeah, you know him. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I was like, okay, this is clearly what I'm supposed to do. But then I think that next morning, we had this long conversation. I was coming home from work and you were going to, or vice versa. And if anybody ever like actually sat down with us by ourselves for more than 20 minutes, the conversations that we have,
we go deep
fast, and like weird, like we're like weird, and we're not afraid to like ask the hard question or say the hard thing,
or we're definitely not afraid to look stupid in front of each other.
No, I mean, you'll probably see that here. I'm like, what does that word mean? How do I say that?
That's true. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about like our faith and on this podcast. Like, we're not also afraid to talk about that either. But I grew up in faith my whole life. I was raised that way. I'm still that way. And Dee Dee was don't be offended about anything I say also either.
I'll tell you.
You were rough around the edges. Like, you were just a very New England, very, I don't know, like just rough. But I also like appreciate rawness. Like, I don't need any fluffy pants, as you call it. I don't need any fluffy pants. I appreciate like raw, real, like be who you are, whatever. Yeah. But the way that, I don't know, I just didn't know if you had any faith at all. You know, like I didn't know that about you. I don't think I knew you well enough to really ask you about that stuff yet, but it wasn't evident to me that that was like a really important part of your life yet. So, I remember having hesitations about getting into business with somebody that maybe didn't have the same like moral or, makes it sound like you had no morals or anything, but,
if our values didn't align.
Right. I mean, I think that is really important. If you're getting into business with somebody, you're investing time, money. This is who you know you're going to spend a ton of time with. Like, you do have to have those same foundational principles that you're going to build your business on to know that you're on the same page. Yeah. And I didn't know that about you yet. So I think I just laid it out there and
we talked about
asked you, you know, like
we talked long. It was a long conversation. We talked all about it.
Yeah.
I shared why I walked away from a lot of it. And at the time was going through things, but definitely didn't have a testimony to share, but I had never lost it. It was just cloudy at the time.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go there quickly. You don't have to go super in depth, but what made you walk away from your faith initially? You were raised Catholic?
I was raised Catholic. Yep. And I had a good friend that passed away early in her life. And I could not understand how a good God would do that or let that happen.
Right.
And I got angry and I was mad. Yeah. And when you see so much hurt and despair that there is out there, you question a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And so, I walked away and my mom fought me. I don't want to say she fought me. She wouldn't really fight me, but she, it was interesting is that she always prayed for me. She didn't try to fight me and pull me along. She just prayed for me.
Yeah.
It's really cool now when I look back.
Oh, you can like really do that. Yeah. It's your own decision.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
and so I think I met you and you were still in your angry phase, I think.
I wouldn't say angry. No, I wasn't in my angry phase.
You're lost. You were still lost.
I think I was lost. Yeah, for sure. I was lost. I felt like I didn't know how to get back there. I was searching, right? So, because I had 2 kids at the time And I think back to my childhood and the upbringing that I had and what my mom taught me. And I was like, I'm not equipped to do that for my kids. So I was searching. Yeah. I was searching for something. I needed that guidance and I didn't have it. And so we had tried a couple churches around here. And then you ended up inviting me, it was like later that fall after we opened the little store, you invited me to your church. And that's where, I think that's where it started to really shift, was that.
Yeah. And it's been like really cool to watch you since then.
Well, yeah. Thanks. Not so rough. I mean, I'll always be rough around the edges. Just kidding.
You're real.
I'm real. I'm always going to tell it like it is.
I know.
Fine.
Did we swear on this podcast?
I'm going to try my hardest not to, but I cannot promise that won't happen. Especially if I get really fired up about something. You talked to me about Mac Jones and yesterday in the Patriots.
Okay, we're not going to talk about that. So we got into the little store.
Yeah.
People call it the shed.
We didn't find that out though till just a couple months ago. That was actually what people called
it the little shed. But that's about like what size it was. It was like the size of like
I think it was
maybe a little bit bigger.
600 square feet total.
Like upstairs and downstairs.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's literally the size. Our home room that we have currently right now is bigger than what our shed was.
So I know a good place to leave off in that story. So we were there actually for almost two full years.
Yeah. COVID shut us down. Yes.
Right. So we'll leave it there. And I don't really want to talk about pandemic at all because I don't even like that word. I don't want to talk about it. But that was the spring. We kind of felt like at that time we were outgrowing the store, right? We'd been there for about a year and a half or so.
That winter.
We felt super squeezed. We had flowers in there and all of our decor. And it was
and we were doing consults around the
and it was crowded. And you called me Ferdinand, like the bull in the China shop, because I am a little bit clumsy sometimes, and I would just take everything with me. And I don't know. It was like an adorable little shop, but we definitely felt the squeeze, and we're like, we can never grow here. Like this place had no room for growth.
Right.
And by then, a year and a half into it, I think we already knew, okay, like we're gonna keep going. Like we're gonna keep doing this. Like this is successful. We're enjoying it.
It was January.
We're going to keep going. And if we're going to keep going, when we go bigger, we go home. So we're going to go big. And so we had our eyes set on this one particular building that was occupied, had been where we are now.
No, you're missing a part.
What?
We make vision boards. We'll also talk about that. We had a red building on it. We were looking
at
a big, giant red house and barn. And that was to purchase. Yeah. And then finances over here was all panicked because I was like, this is going to cost us $900,000 to buy. And this is at least a $2 million renovation. And then we're going to go in $2.9 million. And we don't even know if this is going to work. What? Then we were like, we knew this building that we're currently in was occupied and it was big, but we went in there because these ladies that were here had been in business for so long, like used to shop here as a customer.
Mm-hmm.
So we just wanted their advice and opinion.
And we wanted to know when they were going to retire.
But we didn't ask that question.
Well, I mean, no, but we wanted to know, like, is this a possibility or do we just need to keep looking? Basically, like we brought him a bottle of wine. Yeah. I think that's okay, though. It's okay. And my point is, it's okay to ask.
I know. I'm trying to piece together our conversations with them.
Ask the questions. You know what I mean?
We wanted to know because they were renting.
Yeah.
And we were trying to decide,
learn. I have so much to learn from them too. Like they'd been here in business for 22 years. Like, and that's something to be said about these women who would own this like antique shop. It was very similar to kind of what we do now.
And 22 years, you're going to have economic ups and downs, and they withstood it all, and they were here. Yeah. And so, I remember coming here and asking for their advice. And then that's when we saw that was like middle of the week, and the following week, they posted on Facebook, they were retiring.
Yeah. Like literally days after we came and talked to them. Yeah. And so they made that decision. And then we're like, okay, let's go for it. Let's do it.
But let's hold that story.
No,
we got to hold it.
I know we will hold it, but then that's when like COVID happened.
Yeah. But it was cool, that whole process though, of us taking, when they did announce their retirement, like how were we the ones that actually got this building? We'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, that's so fun. Okay. Now
it's the first segment of the No Questions Unanswered. Or No Question Off Limits. I think it is No Question Off Limits. I'm going with that one. No question off limits.
No question is off limits at all.
All right. So I'm going to ask you the first one. Oh, can you read that? You're closer. Read
okay.
That.
What was the worst thing about working the night shift?
That's to you.
That is to me. Yeah, we're on my night shifters. Man, night shift was hard. It was hard, but great in a lot of ways because you could just work your shift and then I never slept. So like you would just, you had your whole day ahead of you. Like I might take a little nap.
I remember seeing you at Target for like the big Magnolia launch and you were just coming off with night shift.
Yeah. Like you can just get so much more done working a night shift because you're working when everybody's sleeping and then you just power through. But once I had a bunch of kids, I mean, I would be awake for like 36 hours every Monday. But the worst thing that about it, besides just feeling dead inside all the time, man, okay, so like 2002, I got my very first new car. It was a Jeep Commander. It was black. I loved that thing so much. And about a week after I got it, I like to call them long blinks. Long blink driving home in the morning, and this sweet old lady, I had put on her brakes and she was turning into her daughter's house to babysit. And I just rear-ended her whole back. I just rear-ended her. Because I was like, just had a long blink. And I was like in town. And they always say like accidents happen like a mile from your house or something. Yeah. But that was not even the first time I totaled that car. I think I got it fixed that time actually. And then, I don't know, maybe a year or two later, I did it again. Oh, I didn't hit another car, but I did hit a pole. No, it's really, really dangerous.
I say it all the time. I think driving tired is probably one of the worst things.
They say it's worse than driving drunk. Oh, actually, one of my best stories is I fell asleep watching TV in the morning. And I never had childcare either. So even when the girls were toddlers, they were just home. And so I had to figure out how to keep them safe in case I fell asleep. Anyway, I remember falling asleep on accident on the couch watching TV. And I woke up a few hours, I don't know how many hours later, hopefully not too long. And Avery had taken all of the ornaments that she could reach around the entire Christmas tree and laid them on top of me. So like I'm on the couch and I just woke up being covered in ornaments and the tree being bare. But it kept her occupied and I don't even think we broke any ornaments.
Perfect.
No. There were times children escaped naked and maybe were running down the road and lots of bad things happen from the night shift. But anyway, now
no night shifts.
I get a full 5 to 6 hours of sleep.
Perfect.
Every night, and I feel so much better.
Perfect.
Okay, the next one is for you.
Oh, I can't read it.
Okay, where did the name Only Prettier come from? Because you named this business. It was already named when I came here. So
yeah, and I talked about that a little bit earlier about why we layered that design into it.
Yeah, how did you get the Only Prettier?
So we literally listed out everything that we could think of that was fun and cool, and we're both very I think we both would have moved to the South if we could.
This is like you and your sister-in-law.
Yeah, me and my sister-in-law. We would have moved to the South if we could, right? Like I would have left yesterday if Tyler would go.
Sure.
Yeah, and so everything. I mean, I remember writing down Magnolia, Togwood. I think like every single thing possible. And Only Prettier was one of the things that I wrote down because it's a song I loved, and it also really defines, I think, what we were doing. I'd shop a lot. Right, my last job, before Starbucks, was visual merchandising. Like I was in visual merchandising, and my goal was always to make things pretty. Like always, is the way that you show up, visual presentation and brand impression is so important. And so I want to do it better. So make it prettier, but only prettier. Like just bigger and better, and just do the best.
Yeah, and Miranda Lambert's kind of a badass.
Yeah, she's badass. It's awesome. So,
did you have any like second choice names that you can remember? No second choices. It wasn't like between this and this.
No, I'm very decisive. If I say yes and I'm going to stick with something, I'm going to take it and I'm going to go all the way.
So, and just a little fun fact. So we know each other well enough that I can tell you this. I mean, I've told you this before, but like, I never really liked the name.
Yeah.
I still don't really like the name. Because Prettier to me is very girly and soft.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like that's who either of us are. We're neither of us are very girly or pretty. No. or soft. You know what I mean? I feel like we're a little bit tougher. And so I've always been, I like OPD. Like I'll go with OPD. I'll just.
Yeah. I love to call it OPD now.
Yeah. Yeah. You know me.
Yeah. That is a pipe dream right there. Naughty by Nature is going to sing for us. And, we might play OPP really loud as a team because it's really fun. If you just stay to any event, stay to the end because OPP always comes on with
loud music and dancing.
It's so much fun.
And Heather tends the bar.
Yeah, you know what's funny though? We just went to Need to Breathe concert just this past weekend, and that you had told me about a video, or they were like on Instagram, whatever. And they were saying that they didn't like the name either, and I think that's one thing as a business owner, right? Like you come up with something, but then as the business grows and does something, you look at it and you say, was that the best choice? And maybe it wasn't, but you know what? You were given that idea and that name for a reason. So we're going to run with it. But I think about, we pick places based on the name, right? And I've thought about it before. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool name. But it's just never, we change
but
logos.
Everything's going to go in trends, right?
Yeah. I mean, we change logos a lot and those have evolved. And I think that's okay. It's part of brand evolution.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about branding specifically next time. I feel like we've done a big history overview.
Yeah.
And now we can start a little bit talking about more specifically, like what did we learn about our business specifically, like how to actually run a business.
Yeah.
Once we moved into like a real store, like all the nitty gritty beginnings of.
And all the details that goes into
starting an actual business. So submit your business specific questions, I think also next week
or submit any question. We'll get through them all. We're going to get through them all.
Specifically, like how do you even know how to create a brand? Like how do you even know how to do all this?
What is it? What is a brand? I don't want to be a brand. I just want to be a store. Two very different things.
Oh, lots of good things. Okay.
All right.
Until next time.
Thanks.